This video is about deciphering the 11 requirements that the technical screening criteria must meet within the regulatory framework of the European Climate Taxonomy. These criteria truly constitute the backbone of the entire system for classifying sustainable economic activities. Most relevant contributions. When we analyze the 11 fundamental requirements that these technical criteria must follow, we find firstly that they must identify the most relevant contributions to environmental objectives, always maintaining technological neutrality and considering both the immediate and long-term impacts of each specific activity. Minimum conditions to avoid, DNHS. These criteria must also establish the minimum conditions necessary to avoid any significant harm to other environmental objectives, what we know as the DNSH, do no significant harm principle, again evaluating both the immediate and future consequences of each specific economic activity. The importance of quantification. Quantification is another essential element. The criteria must be expressed using numerical values and specific thresholds whenever feasible. When this is not possible, qualitative approaches may be adopted, but always seeking the greatest precision and measurability. Criteria with indicators. In their formulation, these criteria must incorporate sustainability indicators, specifically those contemplated in Regulation 2019/2088 relating to the disclosure of sustainability information in the financial sector. Non-negotiable scientific basis. The scientific basis is non-negotiable. All technical criteria must be based on conclusive scientific evidence, applying the precautionary principle enshrined in Article 191 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union when necessary. The life cycle. The complete life cycle must be considered, incorporating all available assessments that consider not only the economic activity itself, but also the products and services it generates, covering from the production phase through its use to the end of its useful life. Adapted to the dimension of the activity, the criteria must be adapted to the nature and size of each economic activity, clearly differentiating whether we are dealing with enabling activities, those that allow other activities to make a substantial contribution, or transition activities, those that are in the process of transforming towards climate neutrality. Potential market impact. It is also essential to take into account the potential market impact during the transition to a more sustainable economy, especially considering the risks of stranded assets and the possible creation of incentives that are counterproductive to sustainable investment. Sectoral equity. Sectoral equity is another fundamental requirement. The criteria must cover all relevant economic activities within the same sector, guaranteeing equal treatment when they contribute equally to environmental objectives, thus avoiding competitive distortions. Practical and accessible criteria. Last but not least, these criteria must be practical and accessible, designed in a way that facilitates the verification of their fulfillment by all actors involved. Specific requirements for economic activities. Linked to clean energy. As for activities related to the energy transition, the technical criteria must incorporate specific requirements for those linked to clean energy, ensuring their alignment with the objective of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, with special attention to energy efficiency and renewable energies. Electricity generation with fossil fuels. It is important to highlight that the regulation expressly establishes that electricity generation activities that use solid fossil fuels may not be considered, under any circumstances, as environmentally sustainable from an environmental point of view. Towards clean or climate-neutral mobility. With regard to mobility, the criteria must also include specific requirements for activities related to the transition towards clean or climate-neutral mobility, considering modal shifts, efficiency measures, and alternative fuels. Finally, to ensure that transition activities maintain a credible and consistent trajectory towards a climate-neutral economy, the Commission undertakes to review the technical criteria for these activities at least every 3 years, updating them according to scientific and technological advances. This regulatory framework undoubtedly represents a fundamental tool for channeling investment towards a truly sustainable economy, providing the clarity, rigor, and flexibility necessary for a just and effective ecological transition. Focus your queries and challenge our AI Atenea. Complex questions, expert answers. More information at ilpabogados.com and ilpstartup.com.